So we decided we're no longer going to compare our workloads. We're going to compare our rest.
I'm saying I think that they're all things that I have just personally been wrestling with God about.
He knows the capacity of a human, and he knows he wants us to work hard. He built us to work hard, and he told us to work hard for 6 days and then to rest because he knew that we needed it.
You did feel like that was something you craved, do it.
Think about how that could change the dynamics of your relationship.
I mean, these are tough things to talk about, but they're such like important things to talk about.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to my home
Yeah.
for episode 3. We're so excited. I'm Marianne.
And I am Olivia.
We are your hosts for the Related to Motherhood podcast. We are finally getting in the role, kind of in the groove for this podcast, and we hope you enjoyed episodes 1 and 2. And today we wanted to talk about related to the self-care movement and where the movement gets it wrong. And our opinions might be a little bit controversial or maybe a little counterintuitive, but we wanted to get into it.
I know for me, which I talked about this in our last episode, opinions change. So my opinion about the self-care movement has definitely kind of shifted over the last couple of years, which is interesting. So I'm excited.
And you and I have different perspectives on
We
it.
do. Which is
We
good.
we approach it differently, and we need different things when it comes to self-care.
Yeah, we definitely just live very different lives. So therefore the whole quote unquote self-care, I'm doing quotes if you're just listening podcasts, but is just looks different for us.
Yeah. And we hope you can listen to our whole episode with an open mind as we kind of discuss how we approach self-care and how we think a lot of people online and the influencer space are getting it wrong. And then we want to hear your perspective and your opinions about it and how it looks in your life. So after this episode, go over to our Instagram page. We have a few posts up by this point about this episode, and we hope you leave us some comments to give us your feedback.
Yeah.
We want to open a conversation and just chat about it. Like in the realm of motherhood, what does self-care look like? What should it look like? What should it not look like?
Yeah.
So I think first we need to define it, because on the surface, self-care seems like a pretty good thing.
Right.
So what do you mean, or what do you think? Did you look up what Google
I
says
did.
about self-care?
Let's see Google's definition of self-care. The practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, which sounds beautiful.
Yeah, that's
That
a great
sounds
idea.
like very healthy,
Yeah.
like a very normal thing.
Yeah.
But I believe, personally, we're just jumping right in. I believe that it has kind of been skewed a little bit. And this is speaking directly to Christians, because if you're not a Christian, then you just, I'm answering to a God, you know what I'm saying? But I just think that it's been skewed a little bit. What do you think?
I like that you said that this episode in particular really is speaking to Christian moms. Because when I think of self-care, particularly all the stuff promoted online, it's very self-focused. It's very self-fulfilling. It's very putting yourself first, which in a lot of ways is contrary to what the Bible says. But if you don't believe in Jesus, you don't honor God with your life, it's not a priority for you, we wouldn't expect you to think through it the same way that we do, because your priorities are different. We particularly in this episode are speaking to Christian moms who feel like they want to honor God with their lives, and with their time and where they spend their time, where their mindset is at. So we do hope that if you're currently not a Christian, maybe you're searching, maybe you've made a decision otherwise, which many people I love have, then I hope you take what we say with a grain of salt. But what does the Bible say about
So the verse
self-care?
that we were talking about this morning, the verse that I specifically think of whenever thinking of self-care and my own opinions about it, is Matthew 16 verses 24 through 28. And it says, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. So,
It does seem like, especially through the New Testament, through what Jesus is saying, he's never really talking about self-fulfillment or self-pleasure or putting yourself first. He really never speaks about it that way. It's always putting God first, honoring the Lord. A lot of times it's giving all of your material possessions away. And then next it's putting your family first, putting your husband first, putting your kids first, and then putting your neighbors first. Yeah. It really is putting yourself last in a biblical sense.
Yeah. I know that something, and if you know me, then, and Mary, you probably have heard me say this before, maybe, I don't know. I say it a lot, and my husband's going to roll his eyes because I say it to him a lot. The whole, you deserve to be happy or whatever, that's not biblical. In my opinion, it's not biblical whatsoever. And this is heavy, but I'm going to say it anyway. I literally deserve to be dying and going to hell. That's what I deserve. So I just don't think that's biblical. I don't think that God ever said in the Bible that we deserve to be happy or that it's all, it's all about him, and I feel like we need to shift our mind back to that. That's my opinion. It's very heavy opinion. Sorry.
Okay, but what does that mean for you in all reality? Because you do want to be happy, and you want your friends to be happy. You want your family to be happy.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I do think the Lord does want us to be happy, but happy in what? Yeah. Right? Joyful in what?
So I think for me, there's a difference between happiness and joy. And I don't really crave happiness. I do crave joy, and I crave like joy for my family and things like that. I think that joy is like not changing. Happiness is based on feeling. And I think joy is something that can't, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a gift we've been given. So for me, I mean, I don't know. It's a very hard line to cross because you were human, and we want things of the flesh and all of that. And I
think our culture is pursuing happiness to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Just a couple days ago, I was having a conversation with someone who I love a lot, and they said to me, "Do you have a preference of what your kids become when they grow up?" And I gave my preference and what I hope for them. And he said to me, "Well, probably all you want is for your kids to be happy." And my first thought was, no, that's not the end all be all of what I want for them.
Yeah.
I want them to be happy, yes, of course, but I also want them to have purpose. I want them to have looking at the world with generosity, looking at outward instead of inward. I want them to have joy through the things that they're doing in their career or with their families or with their communities. I hope they're not focused primarily on their own happiness because you see so many people out there, literally it's all on the altar of their own personal happiness.
Yeah. So I think whenever I say all of these things, I hope that I don't come across prideful whatsoever because these are not things, you know what I'm saying? I think that they're all things that I have just personally been wrestling with God about in my own life. So I 100% agree that, whenever you think about your kids, and you're such a good mom, but you specifically think about, you want them to be generous, all those things. And that is what matters. It's not about the career and all of that. So I think that's really special and cool.
I think when you look at it at your mother and you're raising your children to have certain priorities and certain values, if your top priority is, I want them to be happy. And when you communicate with them, you're like, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to do what makes you happy. If that really is the first and foremost kind of criteria for the decisions that you make and the path you hope that they pursue, that could get you in a really tricky, sticky place if that's your number one goal is happiness. And I think with the self-care movement online, it's all about that.
Yeah.
I was looking on Instagram. I didn't want to screw up my algorithm, but I risked it for you guys. I looked up hashtag self-care. And one of the first things that popped up was this one. I'll put it on the screen for you. But my energy is meant for me first. I will give myself the best of me, not what is left of me. And doesn't that sound nice?
Yeah.
But it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
My energy is meant for me first. I will give myself the best of me, not what is left of me. I feel like anyone who truly embodies that statement is not going to be happy. They're not going to be fulfilled or have good relationships.
And they're probably not a mother.
They're probably not a mother yet. That's true. So maybe the mothers listening to this podcast, this is old hat and you already know all of this. But my energy is meant for me first. I will give myself the best of me, not what is left of me. If you have that mindset where, I mean, you can use the analogy where, like, when you're on an airplane, you put on your own air mask first before you help your child, or the analogy, you fill up your cup first, or you're going to be empty and you can't pour into anyone else. Those make sense, but it's not an apples to apples comparison in my mind.
Yeah. Because
it's almost like that's survival. Obviously, as a mother, you can't be absolutely running on empty. And we do want to get into that in a little bit, kind of what self-care in a biblical sense could mean. You don't want to be just running on fumes, completely empty. Yeah, that's not going to work. You don't want to be in an airplane that's crashing and you pass out where you can't help your child. But in an everyday sense of where you are in motherhood and living your life for the Lord, if you are prioritizing putting yourself first through all things, all your energy is going to you first. Not, I will give myself the best of me. Where does that leave you with your relationships, with your children, with your happiness, with your career? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's just not, if you're a Christian and and you're walking with Jesus, you just can't live by that. You know what I'm saying? Like you would literally be, you'd be wrecked all the time. I feel like I have tried it. That's why I'm saying it. I mean, you would just be wrecked all of the time. Your marriage might be struggling. Your relationships with your kids might be struggling. It would be really, really, really complicated. I feel like I have never felt more peace than whenever I just gave into Jesus, and gave into what he wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Which you fight it forever, but then it's like, you're like a toddler with a toy. You know what I'm saying? It's when you just give in, it's easy. Yeah.
A lot of you listening are probably moms. We are moms. When it comes to all practicality of this, you are being selfless most of the time. If you're a good mom, you're selfless. Yeah. You're tired in the morning, you still make your kids breakfast. You want to go out and hang with your friends, but your children need you. You stay with your children. But when it comes to mindset around it, you might be doing the things that reflect what we think are biblical values. But if in your mind you're resenting it, where I'm tired, but I still have to make my kids breakfast, and I can't believe, like, they can't just fend for themselves. Like, I'm just so, why can't I have some me time? Why can't I be, why was I given this burden? Yet, then if your mindset's in the wrong place, but you're doing the right actions, where does that leave you?
I think that you would, again, just feel very, that would feel very heavy, and nobody wants to live with that burden on them all the time. So, I mean, I am not going to tell you that I've never felt that way, that I haven't woken up on days, and this morning was probably a pretty good example when I'm trying to get out the door and I want waffles. I'm like, you need to go ask your dad. And, there's going to be days like that. There's going to be I don't want to say days. There's going to be moments where you're like, oh my goodness, this is wild. I need to breathe. So, I mean, it's hard.
I think our husbands can attest to that. Our husbands are going to listen to this and be like, what are they talking about?
Yes. So I
remember just yes, no.
I know, seriously. So I think for me, just trying to lean in to the fact that literally God said, I want Olivia Strong to be the parent of, to be the mama of those two kids and to be Tevin's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like
you were made for this.
He literally put me in this position. Yeah. So like he knows I can handle it. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't mean that some days aren't hard, and that doesn't mean that I don't need rest. Because rest is essential. But at the same time, I know that God made me for this role, and He's going to give me just enough strength to get through every single day.
The messages that flood us sometimes online, or even from mom friends and that sort of thing, are very self-focused.
Yeah.
And you and I both believe that we should be people-focused and family-focused. But like you just said, we do need rest. We do need self-care to an extent. And you and I approach that very differently. Yeah. So tell me what self-care means to you.
Yeah.
And how you do give yourself rest and give yourself care.
Yeah. So it's tough because I, like Mary said, am very different than her, whereas I don't leave home.
You're with your kids almost like 99% of the time.
I'm with my kids all of the time, except for once a year whenever my husband and I go on vacation together for our anniversary.
Yeah, your cruises are your thing.
We're going to be that old couple soon who are like cruising. But anyway.
You're 28 years old.
I don't know why I'm envisioning us being
You guys are going to be the cutest old couple.
On our cruise ships, yeah. So every single year on our anniversary, we go on a cruise. And that is the only time we leave our kids.
And then just recently, you've started coming over to do this podcast, and you bring your kids half the time, and half the time you leave them with your husband. But literally, for you in your life, which is different than me, other than coming to record this podcast and your once-a-year cruise, you are with your kids all of the time.
Yeah. So I think for me, the way that I provide myself, quote-unquote, self-care is... and really training up my kids. My kids, I have an almost 7-year-old and almost 4. Well, he is 4, not almost. But 4-year-old and almost 7-year-old. And really like teaching them that sometimes mama needs a little bit of space. And it's not, I talked about this last episode a little bit. That's not always come very easily, especially for our 4-year-old.
You have a mama's boy and I have a mama's boy.
Yes, Lord have mercy, bless us.
They are so wonderful, but they love their mamas.
They're very needy little boys. So just, whether it be like setting up a little arts and craft for them to do, or we have this pool and they're obsessed with it, and like going out and sitting on the porch with them while they're swimming and I can see them, but just so I can get a second to breathe and think and rest. I know last night I wasn't feeling super well, so I just looked, and my husband's really good at this. He'll say, okay, I'm giving you the rest of the night off, which sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't, because the kids, how kids are. What is that about kids being more needy of their moms?
They really, yeah, a lot of times they do.
Like dad will be like, hey, you want me to get you some strawberries? And they'll say, no, mom, can you get me some strawberries?
Right, or you're both sitting in the same room with your kids, and daddy's laying over there relaxing, and they're like, hey mommy, would you get me this or that? And I'm like, your father is right there. Yes, it's just, I think, an intrinsic thing where they just know mom takes care of them in that way.
So I think rest is the biggest, and I think you agree that resting for me, I don't do like girls' nights or anything like that just because I'm not that, I don't have that type of personality.
Well, you don't feel like you're missing it. It's not fulfilling
exactly
to you.
And if you did feel like that was something you craved, do it. Like if you have girlfriends, go out with them, and if that's something you want to do. I just my love and I find the deepest rest and the deepest recharging is at home. And I have my chickens and I like to just sit in the yard and watch them. And that's, seriously though, like, it's different for everybody. And that's how I recharge. And I think that's a good way to look at it. It's like, how do you recharge? And then do that. So let's forget about self-care and recharge.
Yeah, that's true. My husband, so my personality is very different than yours. The majority of your motherhood journey, which has been almost 7 years, you have been with your kids the whole time. There were times when you went out of the house to work, but they went with you a lot of times too, even then, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with me, I've been working since I was 15 years old, probably since I was like 18 years old full time. Since I was 21, I've had a career. I didn't have kids till I was 28, and so I was used to going out of the home and being needed by other people and fulfilling my job and then coming home and unplugging. And the first year and a half of my daughter's life, my firstborn daughter's life, I had to continue going out of the home and working full time away from her. And so whenever my husband and I were able to bring me home, I had never watched my daughter and then my son was born all by myself for probably a whole day, to be honest. Isn't that crazy? I had she'd been with my mom, who was her babysitter, while I was at work. And then anytime I was off work, my daughter and I were either with my husband or with my mom, or I had never experienced that stay-at-home mom life where it's you and your kids all alone. And so whenever we started to make the transition to me being a stay-at-home mom, I was honestly really nervous about it because I had never experienced, even though I wanted it so badly. I wanted to not be working full-time. I wanted to be with my kids. I was honestly really nervous about it because it was a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
And so right from the very beginning, we can get into it in another episode, kind of how my husband and I have structured our lives right now. But right from the very beginning, my husband and I were like, we're no longer going to compare workloads, because he used to work full time. I used to work full time. He a lot of times thought his job was harder. I a lot of times thought my job was harder. Once our dynamics changed and he was the primary breadwinner and I was more at the stay-at-home mom role, you could still fight and compare roles, right? And who has the harder workload. So we decided we're no longer going to compare our workloads. We're going to compare our rest and making sure we get not equal workloads, because how do you compare being the breadwinner to being a stay-at-home mom? You can't. It's apples to oranges, but we can compare and make sure that we're each getting equal rest. And to us and our personalities, and this might not be for everybody, but for us and our personalities, that's what's important to us, for us to both have equal rest. So we've implemented some things in our life that have been going on for about a year now that I really think you should, if you're like me and you're feeling drained, you're feeling overwhelmed, and you feel like you need an actual separation. See, Olivia, you're good at having rest around your kids, and you've trained your kids in that way, and I think that's so amazing. But for someone maybe with more of my personality, consider talking to your husband about implementing something similar to what my husband and I have done, which is on Monday nights. Well,
it's switched now.
We switched it last week, but for last year on Monday nights, I got the night off, and by the night off, I mean around 4:30. My husband takes over with the kids, and I either go out and get a drink with a girlfriend, or I go sit in our truck and watch YouTube videos on my phone eating Chick-fil-A, or I go walk around Target, or I go upstairs to this office I'm in and do like a personal project. But from 4:30 till bedtime, my husband takes over on Monday nights. A lot of times I still do have to pop down right at bedtime to help get the baby down. But it's every Monday night I get to look forward to having that time off. And so if I'm feeling burnt out, on a Friday or Saturday, I know come Monday I can do whatever I want for 4 or 5 hours. And then every Tuesday night, my husband gets the night off. And so starting around 4:30, I take over with the kids. I do dinner, I do bedtime, and he gets to totally check out. He normally chooses to stream video games. And then every Thursday night, he and I have a standing babysitter who comes over in the early afternoon, and then we have until 8 o'clock for he and I to do projects together or go on a date night and reconnect in that way. And so those are our 3 standing rest times that we have every single week. And I think most people, if it's a desire of yours, you could sort out something similar. The mom takes over for one night and the dad gets rest alone by himself, and then the next night the dad takes over for one night and the mom gets rest by herself. And then maybe one night a week you can have a standing date night where you either hire a babysitter or you swap babysitting with the family that you know, or you get the kids down and you do an in-home free date night. But it's on the calendar, and it's a night of rest with you and your husband together, and you prioritize it. Like, you either have everything done, ready to go before date night starts, the dishes are done, everything's clean, or the day got away from you and you ignore all that stuff, you know what I mean? And you just rest with your husband. And so to me, self-care in a lot of ways is rest. Exactly what you said, but for me, it looks a lot different than for you.
Now, I will say, I had this idea that in order to do all those things that Mary just said, you needed to have, be making a bunch of money or whatever. And I'm telling you right now, my husband and I are in a very budget lifestyle. Like, we're trying to be very cautious about how we're spending money and things like that. And you can still do all of those things and prioritize each other and prioritize rest, and not have to spend anything. We do date nights at home. Yeah. And it's so, like, it really is like, it's the kids go to bed at 7:30 or 8 and we have a date night the rest of the night. We'll cook dinner together.
Do you have a standing day you do it, or just when you feel like you need it?
It's usually, we need to do that just because, so it's something that we have to look forward to. But it's just been, hey, we are like, there's something weird going on between us. We need to reconnect, I saw this meme the other day, and it was just talking about how the husband and wife why are we fighting so much? What is going on? And they're like, we're overstimulated. We need to spend time with each other. Anyway, it was just so, I think I sent it to my husband, because how many times have I felt that way? Just like, well, why are you driving me nuts? But it's because you need to prioritize.
What I love about the standing date night, whether it's at home or out or whatever, is it's like maintenance. It's not waiting until you're just totally blown out and, it's like medicine, it's more like a salve that you use every single week as maintenance to keep your skin soft and glowy, not like,
stitches.
You've already gotten a sunburn, and and so we need to talk to Tevin about a standing date night.
I know, we do. And there's so many things that Tevin and I have honestly learned from you and Drew. Like, y'all are really good about prioritizing rest and really good about prioritizing time with each other, and it is really, really awesome.
I want everyone to not feel burnt out all the time, especially moms. And I see the dynamic in a lot of relationships, and I've been there, where you and your husband are, whether it's out loud or in your mind, comparing your workloads and thinking like, I don't get enough time for myself. He gets to do all that. And it's almost like it's a constant conflict versus me thinking like, how do I get Drew the rest that he needs? And he thinks, how do I get Marianne the rest that you need? And when you get those little moments, especially in my opinion, of scheduled rest every week, your capacity to give is so much better and bigger. So self-care to me equals rest, rejuvenation. And by prioritizing that, it's not about yourself. It's about giving to others.
I agree. That's a really, really good way to look at it too. I think that going back to what you were talking about, the prioritizing time for each other, I think realizing too, and you kind of touched on it, like how important that time is for our husbands too, for them to have something that they can rest, that's restful to them.
Like, think about your husband right now, and maybe you guys are already doing this amazingly, which is fantastic, but if you feel like some things just are off kilter or not balanced, then think about your husband and what rest does he get every week, and know them going to work does not count. As much as you right now are comparing your workload to his and being like, when he goes to work, he's getting a break. But in all seriousness, like, what rest is he getting every week that he can count on and know that you're not going to make him feel guilty about? So if he gets to go fishing with a buddy on Saturday morning and you kind of make him feel guilty about it all week or all day, or you're texting him or whatever, that literally does not count as rest. It's the same way if you get to go out with girlfriends and he's blowing up your phone about what the baby needs, yada, yada. It doesn't count as rest. I mean, I hate to say it, but they have, or you have, like, X'd out whatever generosity was given. It doesn't count. When I consider time off as a parent or rest as a parent, you are taking on the burden of everything so that the other person's headspace can be free. Okay. So when he has planned all week to go fishing with his buddies on Saturday morning, no matter what happens, you make sure he knows you're happy for him to do it. You want him to go do it, and you do not bother him when he's doing it unless absolutely necessary. And then when he comes home, you don't put the burdens of what happened on him, and then he reciprocates that. And how think about how that could change the dynamics of your relationship.
Yeah. And your kid, just every aspect of your home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's important for, like I was just saying, for our kids to see that too. They are, like you said last episode, a direct reflection of us. So they're learning these things too. And my kids will say that, that they need rest. So I think that they're just watching us, and that's what self-care is to me too.
Yeah,
it's just
and
rest.
Can you imagine if my husband and I keep this up for 10 more years, right? And then our 12-year-old daughter is like, oh, mom gets a rest once a week. Like, once a week she gets a night off. Like, that's just the dynamics of our family. And that's what she will expect for herself one day. Of hopefully I'm showing to her that I give to my family, and then I take some rest. And then I want her to do that in her life and with her kids. And I want her to bond with my husband, with her dad, once a week at least, where it's their dynamic together without me, you know? And same for my son, where there are some I mean, it's almost like, it's hard to do as a mom because you do get a little FOMO. They'll either sit at home and watch a movie together, and I'm like, you should really take the kids out and do something. But the second he takes the kids out to do something, I'm like, but I want to come, So it's a learning dynamic all around. But I think it's good for them to have that bonding experience for 4 hours a week with just their dad.
Yeah. Don't you agree, too, that this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately? I am kind of, I don't want to say OCD, but I'm a control freak. My house has to be in order 24/7.
All of us are a little bit of a control freak. Yeah.
Right. I feel like I can't function.
Did you see my kitchen this morning?
Did you hear my question to you about
What'd you say? No.
No.
What'd you say?
I asked if anyone was coming to clean your
Oh, yeah. No, typically, we just talked about last episode how we close up the kitchen at night. That didn't happen last night, and I
didn't do it.
I ignored it. I ignored it this morning. I was like, I'm going to focus on the podcast. All this can happen later, but yes, I have a little itch in the back of my mind about the situation downstairs.
Yeah, but don't you think that it's so important for us to be practicing rest as a family too?
In what way?
Like I mean, for us, it's usually Sundays. So we obviously go to church on Sundays, but making sure that all of your housework is done so that on Sundays you have nothing to do. You go to church, you come home.
That's beautiful.
And you just rest.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way God intended it. So I heard something the other day, and I really want to implement this more in my family's life, because we don't do a good job of this, but someone said, God didn't command us to rest on Sundays for him necessarily. He knows the capacity of a human, and he knows he wants us to work hard. He built us to work hard, and he told us to work hard for 6 days and then to rest because he knew that we needed it. And the analogy this person had said, I wish I could remember who it was imagine your little baby, right? Your 7-month-old who you're trying to get to go to sleep, and they're screaming and they're tired and they're overtired, and as their parent, you're like, you need rest. And they're fighting it, and they're like, no, I don't want to go to sleep. They can't talk yet, but I don't want to go to sleep. And and you are just like, this makes no sense. You need rest. As your parent, I know you need rest, and you're not taking it. And that's what the Lord feels about us, I think.
Yeah.
We get all overstimulated and all wound up, and we're exhausted and we're burnt out. And he's like, yeah, but I gave you the Sabbath to rest, and you're not taking it. And so what does your family honor the Sabbath in that way? Because we don't yet.
We haven't always.
I want us to.
Yeah, we have not always. So the weekends were always saved for yard work and housework. Like, I'm not kidding, and I'm touched on this our last episode. Ever since I have been following the 15-minute rule in my life of just keeping things up in our home, we don't save mowing. My husband works from home. He gets off every single day at 5. It doesn't get dark until 9. So
mow on a Tuesday.
We mow in the middle of the week now. We save weekends for family. We save Sundays specifically for rest. So we've never honored the Sabbath, of rest, but we've really tried lately, just because we're trying to be more mindful in general about being obedient to what God says in every aspect.
So my husband and I do love to go into the weekend with most things sorted. So we do most of our chores, most of our cleaning the garage, like cleaning the vehicles. We do try to go into the weekend with everything in order. But I don't think we've done a good job of honoring the Sabbath in the way God intended, to rest and reflect on him and his goodness and thankfulness to him, and going to church and connecting with fellow believers and limiting work. We haven't done a great job of it, but I have a desire to learn more about it and so maybe you guys will see a little bit of like an evolution, at least in my life, of trying to honor that commandment that he gave to us, to rest and reflect on him, and again, not be self-focused on the Sabbath, to be thankful to him for all the goodness that he's done for us that week and all the hard work that we've done.
Yeah, we literally laid in bed all day Sunday after church and watched Twilight. It was a dream. It was so nice. Oh. But yeah, this is very new to us too, so we've not always honored this. So we're gonna go through it together. We'll walk the journey together.
We'll be little accountability buddies.
I know. Are you resting?
I know. Are you resting today? Are you pouring into your family? Are you connecting with the Lord?
Yeah. So we do Saturdays as like a fun family day. So like almost every Saturday we grill out, especially in summer. Every Saturday we'll grill out and we'll do like a big pool day. All day. We just spend all day outside of the pool. And then Sundays, church and rest.
Yeah.
And it really is just nice. And it's something to look forward to, like you were talking about.
Some people who honor the Sabbath and the rest of the Sabbath really strictly, religiously, I've been inspired by them online because they really do have everything kind of prepped for Sunday. Like the food's already prepped. All the chores are done, all the laundry's done. And so they're not necessarily sitting around looking at the mess and all the things that need to be done and being like, no, I can't work. It's like, the work is done. I'm relaxing today. It's just so beautiful. I need to work on that. Okay, I wanted to talk about some tips. We went a little bit over how you do self-care, which equaled rest, and how I do self-care, which equals rest. It's interesting we both came to that conclusion independently. Before we get into the tips, I feel like self-care can be different to each person based on your needs. So to you, self-care might be going out and getting your nails done and getting your hair done, or going out and eating at a restaurant yourself or going to lay on the beach. There is no like hard and fast rules about what's right. It's just recharging for yourself, but then pouring into your family. Like, it's not about you. It's about honoring the Lord and being better for your kids.
I agree. I think, I agree that it's self-care, and it's like the definition is a very wholesome thing according to Google. But I feel like the world has made it all about self. In reality, even according to Google, which is a good thing that we agree with, that definition, it's really about resting so that you can give yourself more.
Yeah. It's not about taking as much as you can for yourself.
Yeah. It's about resting and making sure that you're where you need to be rest-wise and nourishment-wise and all of those things so that you can give yourself more. And so that you can do what God wants you to do more. Has nothing to do with ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. So what about the moms who are out there who might be listening, who are burnt out, do feel kind of at the end of their rope, don't feel like they have the support to get any of this rest that we're talking about? Like, where do they go from here?
Yeah, I think that's really hard. So when you say that they don't have support, you mean like they aren't married and don't...
Maybe they're single moms.
Yeah.
Maybe they have husbands that aren't supportive in that way.
Yeah.
And wouldn't allow them to take guilt-free rest. Maybe they work 40, 50 hours a week and then really do want to spend all that extra time with their kids. So where do they find time for themselves?
Yeah.
Like, is it just seasons of life that they just need to get through and maybe the season will change? Or where do they find rest?
I do believe that there are, I mean, personally for me in my life, there have been seasons of life where it was not realistic. Like, for instance, when I just had a baby, I didn't get rest. I was up all night. My husband didn't get rest. Like, none of it, you know. I mean, I just think that there are seasons of life. I do think that that you could maybe get plugged into like your church or a friend group or whatever, like to where you had companionship.
Maybe you're a single mom, you find another single mom and switch babysitting to get a little bit of a break.
Companionship, or just like them coming over to hang out. And I mean, how many times has that happened? I've come over here and, you know, hey, I'm going to take a shower, which is not self-care, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
let's not get into that.
Right, but
yeah,
you know,
grooming your hygiene does not count. That's a necessity.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Just like counting on, you know, they say it takes a village. So like really praying that God would send you that village.
Maybe you don't have it right now.
Yeah. I mean,
and it really is a season of hardship for you. But know that it can change and it will change. Pray for and actively search out a village.
Yeah. Reminding yourself that God cares about the desires of your heart. And if you're aligning with him and you're doing what, you know, he asks of us and all of those things, then he does say he will give us the desires of our heart. So,
as long as they're in line with his will.
As long as they're aligning.
And I think God's will for you is for you to be serving your family well, you know, not being at rock bottom all the time to where you're not who you need to be for your kids. Like, that's not what God wants for you.
Yeah. I would, and I say this a lot, but I would start praying now. Like, start praying now. I prayed years ago that God would send me friendships, like people to do life with. And I don't have some huge circle or anything like that. I think just God, he cares about that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, knowing that if you're praying for that, he's not going to put you in a situation that is not of him. Be patient and you know, just know that he is working behind the scenes.
And do the next right decision that you think is going to bring you closer to establishing that village. Like, let's say you're a single mom, or maybe you're a mom. This could sometimes even be worse. Maybe you're a mom who has a husband, but he can't or won't be there for you. So it's almost like, you know, maybe he's deployed, or maybe he does shift work to where he's gone 24 hours at a time and then has to sleep when he comes home. Like, those are really difficult situations and seasons. But what's the next best decision that you can make to develop a mom friendship or a church group support system? You have to put yourself out there. You have to, I tell my daughter all the time, friendly people make friends. Or I say, we make other people feel seen and acknowledged. Like, you put yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because yes, if you kind of are socially isolated and feel uncomfortable doing that, I'm not saying God can't work miracles, and if you pray for it, who knows, someone might show up on your doorstep. But to be honest, like, you have to put yourself out there and be vulnerable for other people to reciprocate for you.
And seriously, like, if you're in that season of life and you're watching this or listening in, like, find a way to message us, because I personally, and I think Mary too, would love to specifically be praying for you by name, that God would send you that village, or even that single person or whatever, that he would just open those doors, and in the waiting, he'd give you a lot of peace and a lot of rest that you can't even explain, but so you know it was from him.
Yeah. If you message us and give us, you know, maybe your name, your situation, what specifically we should be praying for, we will pray for you and follow up with you, and be praying for you to get a support system in place that allows you to rest and allows you kind of the mental ability to serve your family and find joy in your situation while finding rest. Like, I think the Lord wants us to be not self-focused, but people-focused. And a lot of times, if you're just totally drained, you can't be people-focused.
Yeah. I think that he is good at giving us what we need. So, like Mary said, if you message us, we can start praying for you by name, and you will look back at this time and you'll be like, what the heck? Like, how did I even survive that?
I know.
I mean, I have
don't want to repeat that.
Yeah, I've thought that in seasons of my own life, because I touched on this last time. My husband is a new Christian, so we have not always been, you know, where we are now. So there were lonely times there where it was hard. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have the support system of a Christian husband who was answering to a Most High God. So, but there's a big but God saw me through it, and he gave me just enough peace for that day and enough rest, and I survived, and my kids survived.
Back when my 3-year-old was a year old, I was working full-time out of the home with my commute and everything. And when I was home, I felt constantly behind on laundry, never could get meals on the table for my family. We were mowing our 5 acres on the weekends and doing all our cleaning on the weekends, and it felt totally unsustainable. And I prayed and prayed, and we took drastic measures in our life in order for me to no longer have to help support financially. And God did answer the desires of my heart. I would cry into the night regularly. My poor husband, because I had a desire to come home and be with my kids, and the Lord has answered that prayer, and I'm so thankful every single day. And if you do have that desire, and it hasn't happened for you yet, keep praying for it. Keep honoring the Lord. Be patient, but be diligent in making the next right decision to get in a situation that you want to be in, because it is so, I just see the Lord's hands all over our life. And I couldn't be more grateful. And it's the only reason why you and I have the capacity right now to do something like this podcast. There has been many times in my life where it absolutely wouldn't have been an option to have kind of the extra capacity to film and record and upload a podcast and be there to support other people. So it's almost like we're trying to pay it forward to encourage the stay-at-home or the work-from-home moms, or the moms who are working full-time out of the home and have a desire to come home and be with their kids. Like, those are the people that we want to encourage. And we hope you are encouraged through this podcast. We hope you reach out and connect with us. We want to build a community of women who want to honor the Lord through their homekeeping, through their motherhood. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope, even though it felt kind of heavy and deep, we hope it encouraged you.
Yeah. I mean, these are tough things to talk about, but they're such like important things to talk about. And I feel like other people probably feel the same way. And like Mary said, I hope that it was encouraging to you and that you feel motivated even maybe. And biggest thing is that you feel encouraged.
Yeah. We hope you join us next week as we are really excited about next week's episode.
I can't believe it's already here. I feel like we started talking about this like last week, and now we're like 3 episodes in, and it's just here.
I know. This is going to be a journey. We are committed to doing this for the next year at least. We will be here every week, and so we hope you're here with us. We are related by marriage.
We're related in Christ.
Join us each week as we chat all things related to motherhood.